Hey guys, we're here at the racetrack. I don't know if you can hear it. It's really, really loud, but we are here testing the new Canon EOS M6 Mark II.
There's a lot of new features on this camera, a brand new sensor, so we're gonna put it through its paces. This is gonna be really fun. So as always, guys, we're going to be hanging out in the comments below, answering your questions, so feel free to let us know your thoughts down there. And then a lot of you have been asking us for these, so here it is. We are going to be releasing our presets that we use for shooting all of these images, as well as our video LUT files, and then help guide. So if you want any help getting started, anywhere from a getting started guide all the way up to a full course, which will be coming really soon for that camera, all that information is down below in the video description. And then obviously you can join us on our Facebook group to get some more information, see other people posting with that camera. And then we have our gear guide, so everything that we would buy for these cameras, lenses, accessories, go check those out down below. I think you'll really enjoy them. So the build on the M6 has always been this kind of great combination of really compact, small size, but without getting rid of a lot of the dials and controls that a lot of other cameras do. And here in this camera, it's really kind of improved things a little bit. So now we have an additional autofocus button that can switch from your manual focus to your autofocus. You could use back button focus for this, or it's like just a custom button that you can use for everything else. And then on the top of the camera, we also got rid of the exposure compensation dial and replaced it with a much more useful function button that can be used for just about anything in the camera. So Canon has also chosen to stay with these EFM lenses, and rather than change things to the new RF mount for Canon's newest mirrorless cameras, which is probably a bit controversial, and honestly, I have some mixed feelings with that one. I mean, on one hand, the EFM lenses are just so incredibly compact. They really fit the new system perfectly, but there are just only a few options available, and even fewer if you want some really good quality glass, or especially some wide aperture zoom lenses. So you will be using an adapter to pair these with Canon's EF lenses if you do want something a little bit nicer and especially wider aperture on the zoom side. The good news is that the lenses are remarkably inexpensive. So I think the most expensive one is like $500, and most of them are way less expensive than that. So great if you're a starter camera and looking for a more inexpensive system to be able to upgrade those lenses. And then in addition, we do have that flip up screen from the old camera, and then you can attach that EVF, which works really well to the camera. If you do prefer to have that EVF, it is available with the kit in some of the options.
So let's talk about the two biggest upgrades on this camera. Obviously, it is the autofocus system and the shooting speeds. Canon's original M6 also had the signature dual pixel autofocus system, but with every iteration, it just keeps getting better. We now have 100% vertical coverage and 88% horizontal coverage, which basically means the camera can track and focus on just about everything you can see. We also now have eye detection, which worked pretty well as long as I didn't have the model's face blocked and she was fairly close to the camera. But I will say that unlike Sony's autofocus systems or Canon's newest firmware update for the EOS R, the eye autofocus doesn't work unless you are shooting portraits pretty close to your subject. Good news is that even in low light, we had no focusing issues and almost every image was tack sharp. So when it comes to frame rate on the M6 Mark II, Canon did update to a Digic 8, which means faster shooting at 14 frames per second, which is absolutely amazing for a camera in this price range. We also have new RAW burst mode, which allows you to capture raw images in 30 frames per second raw short bursts.
So one of the things that I've always loved recommending Canon cameras for is that they are just so easy to use, especially if you are starting out So flip this camera into auto mode, the menu simplifies dramatically. You get rid of all those intimidating functions that you would see on most other cameras, and it is just easy to use. However, throw the camera back into manual mode and the menu just comes to life again. You have all of these options, tons of customization. You have just the right amount of dials even for a compact camera. And so this camera really is great for both a beginner level or for someone who's intermediate or advanced and wants to run this camera in manual mode and get all the customization and features that a camera in this price range should have. So let's talk about video, because I love having video and these kind of video features in a camera that's just so small and compact, and you can use for all your family vacations and anything, up to some really cool productions and some awesome stuff like what we did a little bit earlier in the video. And yeah, overall the system is very good. However, there are still some pretty big limitations here. So let's get this out of the way. The camera does not shoot 24 frames per second at all, even though the original M6 did, even though pretty much every other camera on the market does. So that is a big miss. If you're shooting your kids playing on vacation, it's probably not a big deal, but for just about everything else, this is a big miss and something that it might be even a non-starter for you and something that would eliminate this camera from consideration. So now that we have that out of the way, we do have 4K, and it's at 30 frames per second, and we also have 1080p up to 60 frames per second. So if you were hoping for your 120 frames per second for slow motion, it is kind of here. It is here with some big limitations, and those are going to be, there are no audio files recorded with that, so no audio whatsoever at 120p, and then also you are getting no autofocus, which is kind of the biggest deal, and then a slight crop on that. So I mean, I did use it. There were a lot of clips in here that was shown at that. It worked pretty well, but there are some limitations when working with that super slow motion. Also, even though we are recording in 4K, I will say that the files never looked extremely detailed. So most likely Canon is doing a whole lot of pixel binning or something like that, which is kind of a lower quality way of throwing away pixels in order to get to those 4K files. We're not seeing oversampling at like some other cameras and just the extreme detail in 4K that we would on most other camera systems. Now this is not too unexpected, but we don't have the higher end video features from like the EOS R, such as log profiles. We also don't have in-body image stabilization, and then there are just some missing features like zebras and stuff like that. Things that we would kind of expect. There's no headphone jack. Not unexpected from this camera, but things that you should probably keep in mind. I mean, overall, I shot a ton with this camera. I used it quite a bit. I had some great results, but there are just a lot of limitations, and even a few that other camera systems don't have, that you're just gonna have to know that you would have to work with this camera if you're shooting video, and primarily if you're shooting some higher end video.
The image quality is really absolutely great for the APS-C camera. We have a 32 megapixel sensor that performed quite well despite all those megapixels, which obviously can give you trouble in low light and troubles with dynamic range. Now the colors and details, exactly what you would expect coming out of a Canon system. Canon always does a great job with this. And we had no issues pushing shadows, which is a huge deal for me. Always shooting in low light is, a huge issue, and I like pushing those shadows. I had no banding issues at all. So in low light, results were again pretty respectable, even with all those megapixels. Up to 1600 ISO, the images looked amazing, with just a hint of grain popping up, of course. At 3200 ISO and again at 6400 ISO, you will see a slight color shift as well as a little noticeable increase in grain. Only at 12,000 ISO did things take a big hit with major color swings. Even then, with a bit of work, you could still getting those pictures look decent. So without a doubt, my favorite part of the M6 Mark II would be that it is lightweight and compact. I do like throwing it in my bag just to kind of photograph family or, you know, small events. We go to Disney World all the time, and it's nice that it's lightweight and compact. You can just throw it in your bag. Now, it is nice though as well. I can still throw on some pretty heavy zoom lenses, and it felt great. Even with all the dials and everything they put on this, it felt great.
Yeah, I mean, it's an easy to use camera that if you want to, you can just deck out the way that you want. Again, these lenses, I have that love-hate relationship with them, but man, are they small and compact, so it kind of fits that system so well. And so, yeah, again, there's nothing too crazy here, but the frame rates are really incredible, especially for 32 megapixels. And then just an overall solid camera with great ergonomics. It's just a really easy camera to recommend.
Yes. Thank you for watching our review. If you have any questions, go ahead and leave them down below about the M6. We were actually really excited about this camera. I used it a lot during our shooting time with Canon, and I really liked it. It's a great little camera, and it's a great option if you wanted to invest in the mirrorless version of the 90D.